years. And today we meet Paul, who has a great plan to honor the flight attendants on board the hijacked planes that day. Paul, thanks so much for being with us. How are you doing?
Very good. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Well, the first thing I have to ask you is, so I just was looking at the video, and I didn't realize that it's actually a cart that you would see on a plane. That makes it even harder, I'm sure, to push that amount of distance with those smaller wheels. Is it hard?
Well, surprisingly, it doesn't feel that hard to me, but those tires definitely are not made for the road. Yeah. I have different sets of tires, and I have two carts, but those tires that are on there are the same tires when I first picked the cart up, and I've been pushing it on the asphalt on the street since March 1st. So they've held up this long, and I have two more sets of them. I almost wanted, I think it's a more of a mental thing that I don't want to change anything. I don't want to make it any easier than, for some reason. I don't know if that's why I'm not changing the wheels, but I feel like, what those crew members did that morning was just extraordinary. And it's like, what's the big deal for me to be able to, push this cart with small wheels? I don't know. I could just tell you, it's not made for potholes or it's not made for, it's made for on board an airplane. But so far, I've been pretty good with it. So it's not, I just don't, people are baffled over it. They keep asking me, why don't you change the wheels? It's the first thing out of everybody's mouth. And I seem to be doing okay with it. So, when it's working, you don't change it. Yes,
And Paul, at one time you worked on Flight 175 and knew some of the victims. Is that right?
That's correct. That was my normal route, Boston to Los Angeles, and I normally worked that flight. Flight attendants enjoy their ability to pick their schedules, and some flight attendants enjoy just doing short hops, Boston to Chicago and back, and they're home. Other crew members enjoy going to the West Coast and laying over, and that's what I like to do. And so I just came in off that trip. I came in at 8 o'clock the night before, and so yeah, I knew all those crew members. I was flying with them for a couple of months before 9/11, so yeah, that it really hit home.
Yeah, talk about that if you can, and maybe hearing what happened initially and your thoughts going through your head and maybe how that has affected you in these past 20 years.
Well, I could just tell you that that morning when it happened, as the whole world was in shock, when we found out there were passenger aircrafts, I called the airport, and it was chaos in there, and of course, I was getting calls from other crew members, and we put it all together, and we know who flies what type of flying. So I knew who was on board pretty much right away once we found out it was an American flight and a United flight. So yeah, it was shock. Obviously, I was in shock. I know that today that I went into some type of shock, and it was probably, well, it was without a question the biggest change in my life I've ever experienced. And I know that what happened to me personally was I was prescribed a pain medication for back, and I thought it was a muscle relaxant, and I proceeded on an opiate addiction. And what I didn't realize was I wasn't feeling the true effects of 9/11 or the emotional, what I should have been feeling, and grieving or whatever the process is. I just didn't go through it. I was in like I was just in a functioning mode, I never came out of that. Every time I got on an airplane, I was waiting for it to happen again. And that went on for 10 years after 9/11. I don't know how I held it together as long as I did, but it's just truly a miracle that I come out of my addiction to be able to finally honor these guys for what they did that morning. And it's now that it's gotten the press that I was hoping for, people really realize how what these crew members did really were. They were the first responders of that day, They went hand-to-hand combat up there without that training, without military training. And we've all heard the phone calls. We've heard these flight attendants calling the ground and giving us the information. And how could they be so calm under what the circumstances were? If you really think about it, at 8 o'clock in the morning, what they endured and what they witnessed, and it wasn't a pretty scene up there. But they stuck to it all the way to the end, and we know that from the phone calls. They were the ones that rallied this country. It started at 30,000 feet. They're the ones that, they utilized what they had on that airplane, which was the passengers that could help them. And they were boiling hot water in the galleys to take over the cockpits. It's just, when I talk about it, I relived it, because for years I played the scenarios over and over and over and over again, knowing and having worked in that aircraft and knowing exactly what we do. I relived it over and over again. And so when I tell the story, I'm almost picturing being in the shoes of these guys and at amazement of what they were able to accomplish. And so I think it's important that the public and the world know really what they did, and for the sake of their family members. And that's all I ever wanted was national coverage, because I know their family members are from all over this country. Their nieces, their nephews, their cousins, their sisters, their brothers, their parents. And I want them to know that we do realize what they did that morning. The country realizes it, the world realizes it, that what they did, they stood up to terrorism that morning, and they performed. And they just, it was overshadowed, really. And I understand why, the enormity of that day, but I knew 5 days after 9/11 that those guys were going to be overshadowed of what they were able to accomplish that morning. And I had a picture of Flight 175, the whole crew that I knew, and I had it attached to my in-flight bag. So anywhere I was in the airport, on an airplane, people saw the pictures of these crew members, because I knew they were going to be forgotten. And it's unfortunate that I was right. And here I am 20 years later, and I'm finally, thank you God, that I'm physically able to, and people have come in my life to be able to accomplish this mission. And I have to always mention, if it wasn't for Kelly Wilson, my friend Kevin Stevens' sister, she saw the vision that was going on in my head that I had for 20 years. And she saw it. I could tell by looking in her eyes when I talked to her that she knew what I was talking about. And I finally got some sense of relief. She goes, I'm gonna help you get this done, accomplished. And she did. She stepped up.
Well, Paul, thank you so much. You're certainly bringing the story of these heroes to light so that we do not forget them. And unfortunately, we're out of time. Where can people go to support this effort? What website can they go to?
Paulie's Push, PAULIES, push.com. And Saturday the 14th of August, we're having a fundraiser at the Florian Hall in Dorchester. And then the push-off is August 21st out of Logan Airport at the Hilton. And we're hoping everybody shows up to honor these guys. So I really appreciate you giving me the time on here.
Very good. Hey, you're in our prayers, and best of luck. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for sharing the story with us, Paul.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.